Trapped, indeed.
Julia!
Yes, madame?
Look at me, child. Pick your head up. I like to see your eyes when I speak to you.
Yes, madame?
And how are the children coming along with their French lessons?
They're very bright children, madame.
Eyes up. They're bright, you say. Well, why not? And mathematics? They're doing well in mathematics, I assume?
Yes, madame, especially Vanya.
Certainly. I knew it. I excelled in mathematics. He gets that from his mother, wouldn't you say?
Yes, madame.
Eyes up. That's it. Don't be afraid to look people in the eyes, my dear. If you think of yourself as inferior, that's exactly how people will treat you.
Yes, ma'am.
A quiet girl, aren't you? Now then, let's settle our accounts. I imagine you must need money, even though you haven't asked me for it yourself. Let's see now. We agreed on 30 rubles a month, did we not?
40, ma'am.
No, 30. I made a note of it. I always pay my governesses 30. Who told you 40?
You did, ma'am. I spoke to no one else concerning money.
Impossible. Maybe you thought you heard 40 when I said 30. If you kept your head up, this would never happen. Look at me again, and I'll say it clearly. 30 rubles a month.
If you say so, ma'am.
Settled. 30 a month it is. Now then, you've been here 2 months exactly.
2 months and 5 days.
No, exactly 2 months. I made a note of it. You should keep books the way I do, so there wouldn't be these discrepancies. So then we have 2 months at 30 rubles a month comes to 60 rubles, correct?
If you say so, ma'am.
Subtract 9 Sundays. We did agree to subtract Sundays, didn't we?
No, ma'am.
Certainly we did. Eyes. I always subtract Sundays. I didn't bother to make a note of it because I always do it. Don't you recall when I said we will subtract Sundays?
No, ma'am.
Think. You're not thinking. Your eyes are wandering. Look straight at my face and look hard. Do you remember now?
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't hear you, Julia.
Yes, ma'am.
Good girl. I knew you'd remember. Plus 3 holidays, correct?
2, ma'am. Christmas and New Year's.
And your birthday, that's 3.
But I worked on my birthday, ma'am.
You did. There was no need to. My governesses never worked on their birthdays.
But I did work, ma'am.
But that's not the point, Julia. We're discussing financial matters. I will, however, only count 2 holidays if you insist. Do you insist?
I did work, ma'am.
Then you do insist.
No, ma'am.
Very well. 3 holidays, that's 12 rubles. Now then, 4 days, little Kolya was sick and there were no lessons.
But I gave lessons to Vanya.
True, but I engaged you to teach 2 children, not 1. Shall I pay you in full for doing only half the work?
No, ma'am.
Fine, we'll deduct. And 3 days you had a toothache. And my husband gave you permission not to work after lunch.
After 4. I worked until after 4.
I have here did not work after lunch. We have lunch at 1 and are finished at 2, not 4, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That's 7 rubles, 7 and 12, that's 19. Subtract leaves 41 rubles, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Now, on January 4th, you broke a teacup and saucer. Is that true?
Just the saucer, ma'am.
Oh, what good is a teacup without the saucer, huh? That saucer was an heirloom. It cost much more, but I'll let it go. I'm used to taking losses.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now, on January 9th, Kolya climbed a tree and tore his jacket.
But I forbid him to do so, ma'am.
But he didn't listen, did he? That's 10 rubles. And on January 14th, Vanya's shoes were stolen.
By the maid, ma'am. You discharged her yourself.
But you are being paid good money to watch everything. We discussed this at our first meeting. Perhaps you weren't listening, Julia. Were you listening, or was your head in the clouds?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, your head was in the clouds?
No, ma'am, I was listening.
Good girl. That's 5 rubles. Now, I see on January 16th, I gave you 10 rubles.
You didn't.
But I made a note of it. Why would I make a note of it if I didn't give it to you?
I don't know, ma'am.
That's not a satisfactory answer, Julia. Why would I make a note of giving 10 rubles if I did not in fact give it to you? No answer? Then I must have given it to you, mustn't I?
Yes, ma'am. If you say so, ma'am.
Well, certainly I say so. That's the point of this little talk, to clear these matters up. So, we take 27 from 41, leaves 14 rubles, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What's this? Tears? Are you crying? Has something made you unhappy, Julia? What is it? It pains me to see you like this. I'm so sensitive to tears. What is it?
Only once since I've been here have I ever been given any money, and that was by your husband. On my birthday, he gave me 3 rubles.
He did? I have no note of it. I'll mark it down now. 3 rubles. Thank you for telling me. Sometimes I'm a little lax in my accounts, always shortchanging myself. So then, we take 3 from 14, leaves 11 rubles. Do you wish to check my figures?
There's no need to, ma'am.
Then we're all settled here. Here's your salary for 2 months. 11 rubles. Count it.
It's not necessary, ma'am.
Come. Let's keep the record straight. Count it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's only 10, ma'am.
Are you sure? Possibly you dropped one. Look on the floor and see if there's a coin there.
I didn't drop any, ma'am. I'm quite sure.
Well, it's not here on my desk, and I know I gave you 11 rubles. Look on the floor.
It's all right, ma'am. 10 rubles will be fine.
We'll keep the 10 for now, and if we don't find it on the floor later, we'll discuss it again next month.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. You're very kind, ma'am.
Julia, wait. Come back here. Why did you thank me?
For the money, ma'am.
For the money? But don't you realize what I've done? I've robbed you, cheated you. I have no such notes in my book. I made up whatever came into my head. Instead of the 80 rubles I owe you, I've given you only 10. I have actually stolen from you, and still you thank me? Why?
In all the other places that I've worked, they haven't given me anything at all.
Then they have treated you even worse than I have. I was playing a little joke on you, a cruel lesson to teach you. You are much too trusting, and in this world that is very dangerous. I am going to give you the entire 80 rubles. I have it all ready for you. Here, take it.
As you wish, ma'am.
Julia, is it possible to be so spineless? Why don't you protest? Why don't you cry out? Why don't you speak up against this cruel and unjust treatment? Is it really possible to be so guileless, so innocent, such a, pardon me for being so blunt, such a simpleton?
Yes, ma'am. It is possible.